Hello, this is Lindsay Huddleston with Sports Psychology Solutions, coming at you from the Horatio Williams Foundation in Detroit, Michigan. And I have my very good friend and a great individual and a humanitarian and on and on and on, Mr. Greg Special K. Kelser, join us. How you doing today?
Good, Lindsay. Good to
Great.
see you.
Greg, thanks so much for being available. Our history goes back not only to Henry Ford High School, me being a graduate in 1993, and you just a few years before then, right?
Quite a few years.
Right. But Greg, you did a great thing, as you always do now. You provided scholarships to graduates of Henry Ford High School, and I was fortunate to receive one of your scholarships, and that kind of connected us over the years. And then several years ago, I wrote that book, Unlikely Saviors. I still hold on to a copy.
I have my copy.
Great. And I remember you talking about your experience of growing up and how the discipline of being in the military family helped you with basketball and all these things. But a lot of people who may follow some of what I have may not have a historical reference to know about you, your experience at Michigan State, all the great work you're doing in NBA, and all the great things you're doing in the community. So do you want to just give a little background on what you've been involved in so people can know that we're sitting with greatness?
Greatness. You're very kind and generous.
Uh-huh.
I've been very fortunate, Lindsay. I've had wonderful support that began with my parents. My mother and father were tremendous. They were great role models. They always supported me. They did everything they could to build my self-esteem and to let me know that that I could be special, that I could be successful. And they did that at a time growing up in the 60s when I did, and parts of my life growing up in the South. I was born in Panama City, Florida. So, I grew up in the heart of segregation for, the early parts of my childhood. And my parents just always instilled in me that, you're second to no one. And if you work hard and do the things that you're supposed to do, that you will be okay. And I often tell people, of the times when, as a youngster, I'm young enough to remember segregated facilities. I've seen with my own eyes separate water fountains, with colored on one and white on the other. And my parents used to tell me, when you see that, don't drink out of either.
Really?
They weren't going to allow me to buy into that whole thing. And that stayed with me. But what it said to me essentially was that, I'm second class to no one. I'm equal to everyone. We're all human beings, and we have to first treat ourselves in that manner in order for other people to do so. So the lessons that my parents began to instill in me started very, very early, and they really have carried me on through. It was my parents that emphasized education as a means to success. And while I was very, very much involved and interested in athletics, and they were too, they always served as the balance for me.
They were the balance.
They absolutely were, and they kept me grounded. And the rules in our house were very, very simple for myself as well as my brother, and that's you want to play sports, you're going to perform in the classroom as well.
And that's something that we can talk about later that's really had an impact on the work that you're doing now. But as we talk about youth sports, what I want to share for those who are following is a great report called The State of Play. And this is a great report that's been put out by the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan. Antoine Jackson is a program director there for the State of Play initiative. And what they've done over the past few years with the help of the Ralph Wilson Foundation as well as the Aspen Institute is go around Southeast Michigan, which has been documented as being one of the most diverse regions in the country as far as diversity, race, class, all those type of things. And pretty much what they're trying to focus on is what things are necessary for young people to have a quality sport experience. Now, my work in sports psychology consulting, I know that's really important, but what I shared with you previously, and I like to share with everyone else, is that the grade the region received was a C+. Meaning that there's more work to be done as far as to get our young people prepared with that. So I know that on a regular basis for the past 7, 8, close to 10 years, you've been doing a camp. Actually multiple camps, and I'll share those dates as we talk about that. But can you talk a little bit more about your camp? You got one in Southfield, July 9th through the 13th, 9 to 3 p.m. Grosse Pointe, July 23rd to the 27th, 9 to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday for all of those. And West Bloomfield from August 6th to the 10th from 9 to 3 p.m. So talk about your camps and the unique things that you have going on that really make them stand out.
Well, the one thing that we like to do at my basketball camps, we realized a long time ago that anytime you get children in a setting, that it's very, very important to remind them, even if it's a sports setting, it's still important to remind them just how important education is and the role that it can play and should play in their lives. Now, I've been running my basketball camp since 1978.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been going at it quite a long time. But this concept of classroom activity during the course of the day dates back about the 10 years that you just mentioned. We wanted to incorporate the two. So we use basketball sort of as a lure to get children in the building. But when we get them there, then it's our responsibility to set up whatever exercises that we can to reemphasize each and every day. Hey, education is really the key. That's the thing that's going to take you the farthest. And for most of these youngsters who do aspire to play a certain sport professionally, we know, you know, I know that the odds are overwhelmingly against it. Now, we're not going to undercut anybody's dream and tell them to stop it and not go for it and don't think about it. No, we're going to tell them to absolutely put all you can into it, but also understand that, you know, you have to balance it out, and education is the key. I use myself as an example. While I was fortunate enough, blessed enough to enjoy a career in professional sports, it didn't last as long as the profession that I'm in now after sports.
Wow.
So you can definitely see which one is more reliable. And the only reason I'm doing what I'm doing now in life is because of the education that I received many years ago.
That's so important. It seems like so many times, whether it's a coach or a parent, they can get so caught up in saying, you got to go hard, you got to put everything into this. If this is your dream, you have to do it. But you're saying that even with that, you still have to have the educational foundation, because that's going to help you last longer.
Well, I mean, let's look at the numbers. Less than 1 or 2 in 1 million are going to ever be actually paid or be able to make a living playing a sport. So, and no matter how talented you are, I know scores of individuals who seemed talented enough to play NBA basketball.
Sure.
But when there are only 450 jobs in the league, and you got the world that's trying to, the entire world of athletes trying to get there, I mean, clearly there's just not enough space. There's not enough space. There's not enough roster spots.
It's not.
So no, you do have to have something else. And again, even for those that are fortunate enough, you get there. There are a lot of things that can take you down. Injuries, all of those things can be a part. That's what shortened my career. I played 6 years in the NBA. Would have loved to have played 6 more, but injuries played a significant role in that, and I was limited. But for me, and thankfully, when it came time to make that transition, I was prepared. And I was prepared because of the education that my parents emphasized, that my teachers emphasized, that my coaches stressed. I was no different than any other child. I would have taken every shortcut available. Had I been allowed.
Right.
Had I been allowed.
Had you been allowed to.
Yeah. But
and they
thankfully,
right there
I
to
had
challenge
the right
you there.
people around me who didn't allow it.
That's good. I'm talking to my daughter, Madeline. She's 6. She's no shortcuts from daddy, okay? No shortcuts. That's important.
Stay with that.
Now, you have a very unique perspective, having been one of the first individuals to bring that national championship to Michigan State University. Also, in your work, being on the sidelines as a commentator, seeing the Pistons. One thing I always talk about is the mental toughness part, and that's going to be part of what I do when I'm here on June 30th at the Horatio Williams Foundation, talking about mental toughness and social media etiquette. What do you see from your time on the sideline, from even when you played to now, as being one of the critical needs as it relates to mental toughness for athletes now compared to your time, and just your overall perspective about the mental health and the mental stability and the mental toughness of today's athlete?
I think so much of it starts with self-confidence, and an understanding that sports is all about competing, and no one's going to give you anything. You got to go out and sort of take what you want. But the only way you'll be in a position to take anything is if you prepare.
If you prepare.
And you put in the work.
Put in the
time and make the sacrifices. One of my greatest role models was a young man at Michigan State when I got there. He was a senior. His name was Terry Furlow. The late Terry Furlow unfortunately passed away at a young age after a car accident. But, when I got to Michigan State as a freshman, I thought I worked hard. But I didn't know how hard you had to work to achieve or come close to being, fulfilling your potential of being as great as you possibly could until I met Terry. Terry was by far our best player, but nobody outworked him.
Nobody outworked him.
He had incredible work ethic. And he was a good role model for me because he took me under his wing, and Terry would stay hour and a half after practice.
Really?
And continue to work on his game. And he'd make me stay too. You know, he was a senior, I was a freshman, so I had to listen to him. And he used to say, no, we're going to work on some things. We're going to get better. You know, we have to put this extra time in. The 2 hours we just spent practicing is not enough. And I used to say, Terry, but I got to get back over to the dorm. He lived in an apartment. I lived in a dorm. I said, you know, they're going to stop serving at 6:30.
Food, man. You got to eat.
You know what he told me? Don't worry about that. You come eat with me.
Wow.
And so we stayed in the gym, and we worked, and we worked, and we worked. Terry was a first-round draft pick of the Philadelphia 76ers, Big Ten's most valuable player that year. But I saw all this, and I watched, and I could see up close how it happened. It just didn't occur. I mean, he was talented, but there are a lot of talented people.
Sure.
His work ethic, that's what separated him from the others. And that was a wonderful example for me because I, too, wanted to be a first-round draft pick. I, too, wanted to be the best player, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. I, too, wanted to win a championship. And I saw firsthand what it took.
Excellent feedback. Now, two things on that. One, you have the unique experience of having been a 4-year college athlete that won a national championship, went to the NBA. Current NCAA just doesn't seem to operate like that, so to speak. So the second thing that I wanted to speak on to bring it right back was also you talked about leaving Henry Ford, going to Michigan State, and having to work harder. And a lot of things I find out with a lot of our athletes is that they're not really prepared to make a transition. They think that what's got them there will keep them there. And from what you're telling me, that may not necessarily be the case.
Well, it's not the case because each time you step up, each level you step up, it gets much more difficult.
Each level you step up is much more difficult.
It was easier when I was in middle school than it was when I was in high school. But it was easier in high school than it was in college.
Sure.
And then it was easier in college than it was in the NBA.
Sure.
So each rung, it's tougher. And it requires, I think, a whole new commitment. Now, if you got the base, if you got the foundation, and I think the foundation for me was that I really enjoyed what I was doing. I loved the game of basketball. I was very passionate about it, but I wanted to be the best.
Sure.
And so that is what made it easy for me to make the sacrifices that were necessary to achieve this. I mean, you know, I had buddies who maybe wanted to do some other things, and I enjoyed hanging out with them and everything, but I had to draw a line, and I had to prioritize, and maybe it was better served for me to go and run, get in shape, work on my conditioning. Maybe it was better for me to go to the gym and get shots up. Maybe it was better for me to playground more. Back then. You go to gyms now, but back then,
right. Hey, wherever it was, wherever you can go, right?
Wherever you could go, and regardless of the weather. Sure. But because I loved the sport, and I enjoyed what I was doing, and I wanted to be the best, it was never a hassle for me to just do it.
To do that. Staying on the NCAA, and again, talking about your unique experience, a 4-year player, national championship, NBA. Now, just give me your perspective in general about the NCAA and the possibility of that being the case again, where a kid can stay 4 years and win a national championship like a Villanova player compared to the quote-unquote one and done that they're transitioning away from. I mean, just what's your thought on the state of affairs with that right now?
You know, I don't have a problem with I don't have a problem with youngsters who want to skip college or play 1 year and get to the NBA as quickly as possible. I mean, this is the United States. This is the land of opportunity, and a person should be able to pursue, their dreams and goals. The problem is that it has been so restrictive in the past, where if you go and it doesn't work out, then you can't go back. You can't return and receive your education. That, I thought, needed to be softened. I think there has to be an opportunity. If you sign to play ball at a school, I think that it should be in perpetuity. I think you should be able to go back and get your degree no matter how long it takes. And because you may leave and sign a pro contract or something like that, or you still should be able to return and finish your degree. And that can be worked out. That can be worked out. The NCAA is making tons of money.
They are.
This would not be an issue.
Right.
I am also a proponent of working out some kind of way for student athletes to get stipends.
Stipends. Okay, we're talking about quote unquote paying athletes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, there are people who are a lot smarter than me in terms of figuring that sort of thing out. How to disperse funds, I guess, commensurate with money coming in, and then of course non-revenue sports. You have to figure that out too.
Right.
I don't think it can be served on an equal basis, but
Sure.
there needs to be some addressing of that when you consider the amount of money.
And you think that'll help the state of affairs and what's going on?
I think it might encourage a few youngsters to stay in school, take it a little more seriously, and use it for what it can provide long term. Because you and I have both seen too many of the kids who they go to college, but that's not really. They're only going because it's mandated.
Sure.
As far as the NBA is concerned.
For the next level, next step.
Yeah,
I get
you got to
it.
go at least 1 year.
Right.
But, they're not really there to be students. They're really there to serve that 1 year necessity.
So they can go to the next.
So they can move on.
Right.
So there are a lot of things I think that can be done to help student athletes. But as far as kids going, I just, I think the thing that while I have no problem with youngsters going to school for a year, or back in the day when they didn't have to go to college at all, they could go right to the NBA if their talent such warranted. I just think that the thing that you run jeopardy of is de-emphasizing or eliminating altogether just how important school is.
Sure.
And can be.
Right. Right.
I wouldn't be sitting right here talking. You wouldn't have no interest in anything I have to say.
We nothing to talk about at this time?
If it weren't for my education.
That's a consistent factor right there.
That's the thing. That's
that carries
the
you
thing.
through.
So, and I'm sure the same with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the thing. Your education is the reason why you're here.
Yeah, that absolutely gives you the platform.
So I think that that always needs to be encouraged.
That's an important thing. As we wrap up, and I can appreciate the wealth of information you share, and I'm going to extract so many things to share with these young people, whether it's throughout the summer or wherever I may be, and I appreciate it. But when you speak specifically of your alma mater, Michigan State, I had the fortune of spending from August to January with the basketball team, and I transitioned out for some more work prior to all of the quote-unquote things that happened. But I would love to get your perspective as an alum, someone who helped bring that first title home, as far as the state of affairs of Michigan State, not necessarily in general, but specifically the basketball and athletic programs. I'm sure you probably approached a lot. And I just want to get your feedback and thoughts on what's going on.
Well, I want to preface this by saying I am still very proud of my alma mater. I'm a Michigan State alum. I am very happy to be a Spartan, and I will be for always. But we got some work to do. We got some fixing to do because there was some negligence, obviously, that was allowed to maintain for far too long. And this is a cautionary tale, not just for Michigan State moving forward, but for every institution.
Cautionary tale.
Because things, if you don't have the necessary or the proper vigilance and oversight, things can go askew. And what happened at Michigan State should have never happened, and especially when we know now that there were signals and there were signs and there were warnings that for some reason all were not appropriately addressed. But Michigan State will recover from this, just as Penn State did a few years ago. I was on the campus of Penn State a couple of times while that storm was raging, and I would have never believed that in 5-6 years' time now that they would be where they are, because it seemed like the fire was burning. And
no return from that. It seemed that way.
Return. But you know what? People are, universities are, programs are resilient, and the hope is that nothing like this ever happens again.
Sure.
And obviously our thoughts are going to always be with the people who
Absolutely.
were victims of this, who were the casualties of this, some of these horrific occurrences. But it's an opportunity to learn and to be better. And I'm sure Michigan State will be better, as will so many others, because of this.
Sure, they can
and
learn.
if it can, if something as horrific as this can be of great benefit to scores of other universities and businesses, period.
Sure.
Everything.
Sure.
Can learn from this, then that's the good that can come out of it. But
Sure.
I am here to to say that I support Michigan State. I still love the school. I still think it's a fantastic place to grow and learn and develop. I would send my children there,
Okay.
and I would recommend anybody considering Michigan State
to
go there.
I get that. One question about that. What is it about sports or the culture that can make it almost intoxicating when you're in that kind of environment? I mean, you see it when you're at the games, whether it's at Michigan State or the NBA. But is there an intoxicant that comes with, the excitement that comes around sport at that high level?
Sports and a whole lot of other things. Success and notoriety, acclaim, fame, all those things play into that.
Okay.
And it can create a horribly false sense of reality.
Wow.
So, with that in mind, there was probably some of those things that were a part of this. As human beings, we all probably have the tendency to maybe turn a blind eye to something that detracts from what we're doing over here that is so celebrated.
Sure.
So, but again, this is a sign that you can't do that. And it's a new day too for the youngsters. Here's the thing that's tough, and makes me glad that I came along when maybe I did. I don't know too many 17, 18, 19-year-olds that are going to make good decisions all the time.
It's true.
I didn't make good decisions all the time. Thankfully, I didn't do anything that was so bad that it could have got me in trouble with the law and what have you. But, we were all probably guilty of foolishness. Well, that accord or that reality is... And let me back up. And we had people in place that were there to try and protect us, to keep us from
compliance and all those type of things.
So, but now it's a new day, and now it's tremendous pressure on young people to be more accountable and more responsible and more understanding that you don't get some of the advantages that kids may have gotten 20, 30, 40 years ago.
You don't get those breaks.
You don't get those breaks because the university's not going to be able to stand behind you and support you. And if you get in trouble, you're going to be out there. And
so
you're
it's going to force
exposed.
another level of accountability?
Absolutely. So you got to be really careful now. You got to really think before you act. And that's not always easy when you're talking to youngsters.
Sure.
It's tough.
Sure.
But that's the climate in which we live now, and guys have to understand that you may not get a second chance. You screw up, that may be your only chance. So you better be smart.
That's helpful for me in the talking points I develop as I go out and speak to young people, speaking to how important it is now in this post-Michigan State, post-Penn State culture that you have to really be prepared to be accountable, even if you had not been. I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you've shared. I just really want to do a quick recap as we prepare to wrap up. Again, I want to thank the Community Foundation of Southeastern Michigan, the Aspen Institute, and the Ralph Wilson Foundation for their State of Play report. That's really going to help inspire myself and others to get a great message out. You have some great things going on this summer, as you always do with your basketball camps, from July 9th to 13th in Southfield, July 23rd to 27th in Grosse Pointe North, and in West Bloomfield, August 6th to the 10th. All of these are Monday through Friday, and they can get more information at GregoryKelser.com, correct?
Yep.
And then I'll be making my push throughout the state of Michigan, starting here at the Horatio Williams Foundation on June 30th, and then July 14th in East Lansing, July 27th, Lake Superior State in the UP, August 4th at Mont Community College in Flint, August 11th in Kalamazoo, and finishing up August 18th at Aquinas College, and then we go down to Cleveland for USA Basketball Youth Coach Academy. So all these things are working to help future generations, but I don't want my words to be the last words. Can you please share in our remaining moments some things that our young people can benefit from just as we get ready to sign off?
Well, you know what? People who are doing the things that you're doing, and people who are doing some of the things that I'm doing with an emphasis on youth and just trying to show them ways in which they can better themselves and make something of their great blessings and talents that we all have. Everybody's uniquely blessed. It's just a matter of bringing it out and allowing it to grow and then become an asset not only for that person but for the community at large. It's a wonderful thing. So I applaud you and everything that you're doing. I can say about my basketball camps, I know as Lindsay was mentioning the venues, some of you might ask, well, what about Detroit? Well, we have a Detroit camp, but it's full, so there's no spots available for that. But the thing that I like is that we try to move it around. So we have Detroit, we have Southfield, we have Grosse Pointe, we have West Bloomfield. So hopefully there's a venue near you where you can get your boy or girl there, age 7 to 17. We'd love to have them. And then again, the idea of sports and education. I always say they can coexist.
They can coexist.
And we try to demonstrate that each and every day at my camps. I know you certainly do that in your program. So much success to you. I know you've supported my camps.
Absolutely.
You've supported my camps in the past, and you've come and you've spoken. So many thanks to you, and just keep doing the great things you're doing.
I will. Well, you've led the way, Greg. I really appreciate you.
All right,
thanks for making time, and thank you guys for tuning in. And thanks again, Greg Kelser. Thank you very much.